Nova Scotia has announced $2.2 million to open a new 24/7 emergency shelter and transitional housing complex in Bridgewater. The town used to have a daytime drop-in center called Cedar Place in the downtown, but it closed in March. For more on this, we're joined by Bridgewater Mayor David Mitchell. So I understand there were quite a few complaints about Cedar Place, and the locals were a bit relieved when it closed. I'm just wondering what some of the issues were there.
Yeah, so Cedar Place was just a drop-in operated by the John Howard Society, and it was right in our downtown core. And the complaints were everything from crime. We had a huge spike in break-ins, property theft, commercial theft, to drug use, like open drug use in the street, violence, fights, people just stepping out into traffic. We did have one fatality last summer, a drowning. So just an increase in overall crime in the community that could directly be led back to that facility.
Well, how will this new complex called the Landing be different?
Yeah, so that is the number one question on everyone's mind, and the difference is it's not a drop-in. It's not a come and go kind of free for all. There will be rules and accountability in place, so we didn't see that at the other at the drop-in. So there will be that accountability. It is a shelter, so it is a 24-hour shelter. So again, it's the clients that are at the evening shelter are also there during the day. So that it's not that group that just kind of comes into town and as we saw, conducting some business, usually illegal business, and then leaving. This is for people who need the service. And then again, there's the wraparound services, and these are all delivered by South Shore Open Doors Association, so a different operator, which is also key.
Well, what kind of services are going to be offered there?
Yeah, so there's going to be some medical access to medical services. So on site, they have the staff that have training to deal with everything from just the intake to getting folks that don't have proper documentation. So if someone is sleeping rough, been homeless for a while, they may not have their MSI, they may not have other documentation. There will be access to other medical services, clinicians, and things like that, and supports mental health and addiction support as well.
Now, what will it look like?
So it is a house. If you're asking what it physically looks like, it's a house that will have 23 beds inside, as well as some transitional housing, fully fenced in yard. So from the outside, it should just look like a house. And again, with the rules that are going to be in place and that accountability, we're hoping to not see a negative impact on the community. And it will have people, not having to sleep rough in our region.
Well, how much communication has there been with nearby residents?
So I don't know. I can't speak to the communication before this because this was through the province and South Shore Open Doors. So the town doesn't really have any role. We don't fund or support in the organization or the operation of shelter that falls under the provincial mandate. We know that there will be an open house before the opening of this facility for residents of the street. There will be a community open house. We know that there is communication now with the residents between South Shore Open Doors. They've had a number of residents talking to them. I've had some conversations with folks on the street, but there's also a community roundtable that has been set up that will include neighbors, police, staff from the town, elected officials, and residents in general with South Shore Open Doors to maintain that two-way communication.
Well, how would you describe the homelessness situation in your town?
So that's a really interesting question because Bridgewater is kind of it's the service center for the region. There's the homeless situation in town, but it's not reflective of just the town, right? So we have people coming from across the South Shore because we have the services and support. So how I've described it is stable. We would be, kind of naive in any community in this province to say we don't have a homelessness issue. So we do have one. South Shore Open Doors talked about they have about 40 people a month going through the overnight shelter. So again, that is stable. I wish we didn't have any, but that unfortunately is the reality across Canada these days.
Are residents you've talked to more optimistic about the success of the Landing?
Yes, I will say, like the residents, I am also very aware of what we just went through. We had 2 years of a facility that was an absolute failure, and did a great deal of harm to the community. So we can't just kind of push that aside as if it never happened. So I think there's some cautious optimism around the community, but Social Open Doors, SODA does have a history, a good history in the community of delivering services with minimal impact on the community. So I think residents are kind of saying, okay, different operator, different model. We do need the service. So we can't just say, listen, we don't want anything here. We do need these services. So I think that it's cautiously optimistic, I think is how I would describe it.
All right, Mayor Mitchell, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.